Welcome to From Carpool to College, a show for parents who are trying to keep their sanity while navigating the college planning landscape. This is Tracy Amadeo.
And I'm Tara Horitz.
And we have a full house today with special guests, our professor friends. We have
Professor Tom.
Professor Tom's back, and we have a new special guest.
Professor Dawn.
All right, Professor Dawn. Professor Dawn is, this is her first appearance in the podcast, and maybe she knows what she's in for, maybe not. But our whole purpose of this podcast is for parents to get the information about life after high school, what it looks like, what it sounds like, buckling down, being prepared, and what I couldn't think of a better way than to teach parents about what goes on in a college classroom than having college professors in. Right? Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk about something that everybody's talking about and everyone has strong opinions about. It's the AI in the classroom. So today we're going to talk with our college professors who are seeing this shift in real time in their classrooms. We're going to ask them what students are actually doing with the AI, what's helping them, what's hurting them, and parents, what you guys need to know as your kids undoubtedly are using it, whether they're in middle school or they're in high school. So keep an eye on it, and we're going to really have a nice view from the other side in college. So this first question is going to go to my professors, my sweet professors. And we've talked about this off mic on many occasions because as a school counselor, very often academic integrity issues would come to me.
Oh, that's a big topic.
Right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So who's doing the work? Is it the kid? Is it the AI? So let me ask you both. I want you to think about it. Do you remember that first moment, that first time where you're looking at an assignment and you're like, son of a gun, this is not this kid. This is AI. Can you think about that one assignment or a whole bunch? I don't know. I'm not a college professor, but can you think about a moment who wants to share with us that moment, that first time you're like, oh my gosh, this is totally AI?
So I've had a few of those. So my background's engineering. So I know my colleagues that are in the liberal arts and in the humanities have seen it well ahead of, my area. And they certainly see it to a higher degree because they're generating content, right? They're generating papers and essays and reports. And in our area of engineering, it's a lot more analytical. But as these AI models are able to do a lot more analytics, they're able to do coding, they're able to kind of make evaluations, I'm certainly seeing it creep up more and more. So at first, I would see it when I'd have a lab report that a student needed to do. So they'd upload their data, they'd upload some photos and say, hey, AI, write me a lab report. And, at first you're seeing a lab report and you're like, wow, this is oddly professional looking. This follows a format that I never shared with anybody.
Oh, there's a giveaway.
It doesn't follow my format.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe they have some industry experience. Maybe they and then you look at the second group that has the same exact format with even some of the same conclusions. And now you're starting to wonder, wait a minute, is this mass collective consciousness real? No.
Younging of you.
They're all throwing it into an AI model, And so that was kind of my first inkling of seeing it was with lab reports. And now I'm seeing it more in everything, right? Down to design ideas, to, the things that we would consider critical thinking or creativity is now being farmed out to a machine. So that's, and we could talk more about that implication, right? But, I'm certainly seeing it. It was a lot with the written word, but now it's coming to be everything, right? Anything is AI-able, if that's even can turn into a verb, right? What do you think?
Yeah, no. So I teach computer science, and my first interaction with AI from a student was when they submitted a program, and the program worked perfectly and had code that I had never taught. And so I would go back and say, we never covered this in class. Do you have some prior experience that I didn't know about, or did you watch a YouTube video to learn something? And they would be like, no, I just used, some tools that I found online.
Yeah, womp womp.
Womp womp, exactly. And so then, you push them a little bit to explain what they wrote and they couldn't explain what they wrote. And so there you have it, that they used some AI to generate their code. And some of them are just blatant. They'll just copy and paste it. And so there's formatting that ChatGPT and Claude and the other AIs use. And so you can easily tell that they copied it from those. But a real indication is that the code looks drastically different than the style of code that I teach them.
Well, it's interesting. And I know there's a lot of research lately about Gen Z, about their fear of losing their jobs to AI. And just listening to these answers, I could kind of, oh yeah, Dawn's like, her eyebrows just went to the ceiling. Ooh, yeah, because they're afraid they're going to lose their jobs to AI. Now, not all of them, and I'm not citing any particular research study, but that's kind of the buzz and the hum, especially in comp sci. So what are your thoughts on that?
So actually, I just did some work at a company the other day, learning about how AI is used in computer science and cybersecurity at a fintech company. And I have to say that there are no shortage of jobs there. If anything, they're training their employees on how to use AI and how to use it correctly. And they are giving them all the tools and the training to make sure that they know how to use it, because it's going to make their jobs better.
Well, and I'm going to add to that, I think those that are afraid of losing their jobs to AI are the reason they have that thought process is because they are faking it with AI, right? So they're using AI to do their job. So therefore, they think, well, I'm going to lose my job if this thing is smart enough, right? Those that are adapting to the use of AI, using it as tools, using it to kind of elevate their output, they're not worried about it. They see it as they're making themselves more marketable, right? So I'd imagine that if somebody's going, yeah, I'm going to lose my job to AI, well, it's like, well, what are you doing it then that AI is so easily replacing you, right?
Right.
And that's the students who's like, oh, I'm just going to copy paste and hand it in, right?
Right.
If that's how you operate with it, for sure. And it's a tool, not a replacement.
It is a tool. It is a tool, and it speeds things up. It allows people to get data faster in a more aggregated way, and then they can make decisions based on it. So instead of spending 3 or 4 days looking something up, in a couple of hours you have the answer, and then you have to take what you've been given by the AI and make the appropriate decision.
Well, that's the human connection, right?
And I think that's what the students need to learn, is that the AI can give them a lot of information, but they have to make decisions based on that.
So the Supreme Court just refused to hear a law. They kind of made their own connection here. And the ruling is basically AI is not copyrightable. Right? Pure AI content is not copyrightable. It needs a human interaction, right? So if folks want to keep use it as just a rinse and repeat, and I think that's the biggest thing. If you're going to sit there to tell a student, you need to be a part of this. You need to be a part of your interaction with AI. You have to be a contributor, not just a consumer of what AI is putting out.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And I think people have a fear of the unknown, right? And that tends to be a big problem. Mm-hmm. People are rejecting AI and running away from it because they don't understand it, right? And so I think that as educators, we have that responsibility to help students. We don't want to say embrace it, but walk alongside with it and use it when appropriate, and maybe not use it all the time, right? But have that balance. So I think that one of the big questions that comes up, I know in my classroom, I'm sure in your classroom, what are those skills that we can really kind of help students to learn and continue to learn as they're working with AI. So I don't know if you have any thoughts.
That's a hell of a list. I don't want to say it's necessarily skills that require development. I think it's a mindset that requires development. I'm pretty sure that we're having the same conversation that HP with calculators had in the 70s, right? I've got a calculator. And Dawn, I'm sure you have something to add, right? But if you're looking at this as a tool and something that you're going to use critically to make decisions, right, you have to have an understanding that this is not the doer of the task. This is a tool to do the task, right? So your kind of influence and your contribution is more important than what the AI is going to do, right? So, and with that comes you're continuing to develop your critical thinking skills, your analytical skills, your reasoning, right? And all of that comes just from the mindset of this tool will help me, but this tool will not do it for me.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so the calculator is one thing, but think about when we started using Google.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
I mean,
yeah, you start Google everything. Now you're ChatGPT everything.
Exactly.
Right?
So
Yeah.
we're
The
just
language is changing.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're just evolving from using a search engine to now using a more advanced search engine, which can then produce something for you.
Right.
But you still have to fact check. When you Google what is the temperature outside, you're still going to go outside to kind of feel how it is outside. You still need that real experience. So I think people are just
it's that
have a
healthy
negative
dose of skepticism,
Yes.
right? Like you need
Yeah.
to be able to still ascertain,
Right.
does that make sense?
Right.
Right.
And I think it's our job to teach them how to use it appropriately and how to use it to supplement their learning, not in place of their learning.
Yeah, I'd agree.
And the more we encourage them to do that, I think, and show them the positive ways that it can impact them, that they will become less dependent on it for a solution and more dependent on it as a tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with that.
I think for us at a certain age demographic, also because my son's texting me. You know, it's funny. I have my notifications turned off, but I do have my mom and my kids and my dad as the emergency breakthrough.
There you go.
So that's why I'm getting the text. I apologize, listeners, but as parents, you know how it is. You never turn your kids off, that's for sure. But speaking of parents, as a certain age, our experience in going to school maybe before this boom of computers, I remember going to the library and just going through the card catalogs, and then we had this. Remember the silver platter? It was like this ERIC research database that was just very primitive technology. So I think people our age who are using AI, which I am one of them, I'm a big fan. Mm-hmm. I harness the AI, and I harness it like a bucking bronco with very well-developed prompts. And I think Tara and I, when we talk about this with our clients and our students, is they don't have that memory of having to be an analog learner like we did, and it is being used as a shortcut and a crutch. In so many different facets. So I guess our conversations today are really pointed towards how can parents get ahead of their kids, just monitoring to make sure that their kids are not using AI as that, I almost cursed, we got to keep it clean, but using AI as that doer, as that producer to substitute for the thinking that they have to do. How could parents even do that? I don't know.
That's a hard one, I think, because outside of supervising your child's output in their assignments or things like that, right? It's very hard to have a feedback loop that's letting you check to see whether AI is being used properly, right? We as the professors will know as soon as we get, and that's the one thing I think that I always want to get off the table, because students don't seem to believe that at first. We know.
Right.
We do.
Right.
There is no, it's very difficult for you to pull a fast one with AI that we're not going to recognize, because we're trained to look for it. We've identified this as an area that needs our attention, and we know when AI is being used in an assignment that's being submitted, 9.9 times out of 10, right? So that's the first thing, right? Is to have a very honest academic experience that says, I'm not just trying to cheat my way through. And I use the word cheat loosely, right? Because, you're using a tool that can help you, and under the right circumstances, it's perfectly acceptable. But you can't just pass it off as your own. and say, oh, no, I did that, And 9 times out of 10, when I catch a student with it, it's because of the vocabulary. You don't know what ubiquitous means, yet magically it's 38 times in this paper, right? So, I think that there is the sense that, and especially from maybe a secondary learning level to higher education, when you're submitting a 10-page report, oh, they're not going to read this. We read it. That's the job. That's what we're looking to do.
And we run it through AI checkers and turn it in
we
or
have
safe
all these
assign or
tools that
whatever
are
it's called.
Tell us a little bit about the tools that are used. See, I'm not a classroom teacher anymore. And Tara, you're a classroom teacher.
Yes.
So can you guys enlighten me about the tools? I hope I'm not giving anything away. But, we do want parents to understand that, we do have the ability to check for validity if it's student generated. So tell me how that works.
I know for us, I'll start with the very basic one that we have. So our LMS, our learning management system, a lot of schools have Canva, Blackboard, Moodle, all these other types of systems. A lot of times they have built-in databases, and those databases are either built around assignments that are submitted at the institution level or system-wide level. And it's literally comparing word per word whatever you submit to this database. And it gives us a score.
Yep.
And it's a very passive way that we do an initial check. When an assignment gets submitted, I'll get a percentage and it'll say, hey, the originality report here is hitting 90% copied, or 90% similar to someone else's assignment. And it'll show us both assignments side by side. Yep. And we can see exactly where the similarities are. That's built in. Every instructor that uses these LMSs, which is around the world, right, has this basic feature.
Right.
And this was a feature from even before AI.
It was.
Just to check to see whether students are submitting the same work.
Right.
Right. So we've already got that, and that's an automated system, right? We don't have to do anything. So from an instructor standpoint, that's a quick check that's done with no heavy lift from myself. So I'm going to take a look at it and I'm going to use it.
Yep, absolutely. And then there are paid tools that, faculty members use to run their student submissions through to see if it compares to something that was generated by AI. There are free sources. Those free sources are not as good as the paid sources. And some faculty are very passionate about students not using AI. And so they pay for those tools to check to make sure that they're not using it. But I do want to go back a little bit to what Professor Tom was talking about with, encouraging students to use it and how families can, check in about using it, which is that I have a middle school child. He's learning some math skills. Maybe I'm not the strongest in math. So he comes home with homework. And how am I going to help him with his homework? So I'm going to try to read his workbook or his worksheet, and I'm going to try to help him. And I don't want to bother the teacher at night. So what do? I go to ChatGPT and I say, can you teach me about percentages? Can you teach me about dividing decimals? Can you teach me about this concept that my child's learning about? And I can learn that concept, and then I can help my child. And so I think that if parents show their children that it can be used as a positive learning tool, that their kids will also start to use it as a positive learning tool and not give me the answer. I don't put in the question to ChatGPT and have it give me the answer. I put in, I'm trying to learn this particular topic. How could I do it? Show me an example. And then I can take it and show my child how to do it. Mm-hmm. And I think children are going to mirror that.
Yeah, I think so. And I think opening up that communication, right? Because I know for me, coming into my classroom, it was almost like a dirty little secret. The kids didn't really want to talk about it, although we knew they knew about it. The, other teachers were like, what do we do? And it was like whisperings, right? And I think now it's settled in and it's no longer this like little monster in the room. It's kind of become like a friend,
like the pet guinea pig.
Yeah, right, exactly. and someone they're still navigating. Obviously, we all are trying to figure out how to make it work and what's the best way and how do we do it. In our school, we do have to. We use it. We are required to use it.
And as teachers?
As teachers. Yeah, as teachers, we're required to use it. We have different programs that we use where we will have it embedded into our lesson plan as a portion of it. A small portion, not the entire lesson, and one in which students will come to the table with their own materials first. And
so give me an example on that.
Okay. So students had to write a 5-paragraph essay.
Oh, the 5-paragraph essay.
And
which is like the nemesis of the college essay,
I know,
by the way,
I know.
parents. We'll talk about that in another episode.
So a 5-paragraph essay comparing sources on, let's say, volcanoes and their destructiveness throughout the world. And one article gave you one source or one, pieces of evidence, another article, and then a video. Put them all together and see what you got. So the kids would write it, and then as a teacher, my job is to go in and conference with them. But logistically, it's really hard for me to conference with 22 students at once, especially if I'm the only teacher in the room. So one of the steps in the revision process is to go into a platform that I've designed with the prompt and the rubric and all the information, and for the students to plug in their essay to see what feedback they get there, either before or after I've met with them.
That's really good.
Now, I will tell you, some of the feedback from students is, can I skip that step?
Really?
They're really not, some of them are not 100% interested in using it. They've tried it. The novelty is worn off a little bit in that regard.
Or maybe they can't handle the truth. Maybe they can't handle it. Seriously.
Yeah,
it
maybe.
could be.
Because my chat, I named Marcus, I tell him to be curt with me. Don't sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
And maybe these kids can't handle the truth. Not to sound like a few good men.
but right. But organically, what comes of this is that, like, some of the students will say, I don't really want to use it. I'd rather just review with a peer or do it on my own, get it together that way. So, I always say to them, listen, you're the boss. So when you go into this AI program and you say that you want them to look at your thesis and then your evidence, if you don't like what it tells you, or if it's telling you something that doesn't really mesh with how we're doing it in the classroom, because that can sometimes come about, I said, then you say, listen, let's move on to the next paragraph.
They should say, be gentle, because I'm a sweet, delicate flower, and my emotions are fragile. That could be part of the prompt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you give feedback, please be mindful that I'm sensitive to criticism.
There you go.
There you go.
I don't know if we want to do that early. I think we should go back to a few good men.
Yeah.
Because by the time we get them at college, that still continues.
Tara and I do work with the younger kids. They're not in college yet. So.
Oh, that's a nice
Wait,
cup of coffee.
Tracy, what are you doing over there? Pouring a cup of coffee?
Listen, it's daylight savings time, first of all. I know we try to stay evergreen in this podcast, but I will say today is the day after we turn the clock. And I'm kind of seeing other people with my coffee.
You are?
Yeah, this is not an espresso. This is a French press. Ooh, I know.
Smells good.
I know. Can you smell it? I feel bad. You guys, there's a little bit left. But this is a guy in town has a coffee company. It's called Lakeborn Coffee. And it's like creeping up everywhere. So I bought a bag at my hair salon because it's a long story. Anyway, but now I'm like mainlining the stuff. So sorry, but carry on. Sorry.
Now that we've been derailed by a delicious smelling cup of coffee.
I know.
Wonderful.
Sorry.
Got to get some more in here so we can have some next time.
I will. All right. If Lakeborn is listening, please send us coffee.
Send us coffee.
That's what we used to do to Nespresso, right? But I'm kind of breaking up with Nespresso. I know.
But,
it's all good.
But yeah, I think that it's important for students to realize that, it's not the only way to write. It's not the only way to think of something. It's not the only way to figure out the math problem. It's a suggestion, and take it for what it's worth. And
Tara, you sorry to interrupt, but I think you really hit a point here that kind of underlies the whole thing, which is really important, and that is, it is not the expert.
Right.
right?
is
You
not.
are still in the driver's seat. You are in charge, and it's your decision on what the final output actually is. And I think many times we're using these things as if they are the experts, the be all end all. I can't possibly do better than this computer, right?
Yes.
Right.
And so that empowerment, right? That no, I don't want that.
And I think Dawn had said this too. I've been disappointed quite a bit. I don't know. There's probably a term out there, but in
Or we should
utilizing,
make a term.
or we should make a term. But utilizing any of the AI, programs, I feel that it really is not all it's cracked up to be at times.
Totally not. I want to share a quick story. This week at my day job, I hosted a college fair, and I was so overwhelmed because there was just a lot to do in a small amount of time, and I had over 20 colleges coming in as the reps were coming in to talk to my students. And I thought to myself, as a former science teacher who's a lover of maps, I love maps, I love the visual spatial representation of information. I just do. So I thought, I'm going to ask Marcus, my ChatGPT guy, I personified him already. I think we're having a relationship. Not only am I seeing other people with my coffee, I'm also, my poor husband is being replaced by Marcus. But I asked Marcus I put the college list in, and I said, make a map for my students. And I was very explicit. I was so good with the prompt. Mm-hmm. It was like, I'm hosting a college fair for such and such high school. I am the college and career counselor. Please generate a state map with pinpoints for every college in attendance. Break it down by state. So there's a 1-page map per state. Then break it up Northeast, Mid-Atlantic, South. And then make another map. And I broke it down, but I was very explicit. The crap that Marcus spit out, and I'm sweating because now Marcus. It's like Marcus and I. Marcus felt like Nespresso for a hot second there, because I was. First of all, I was relying on Marcus because I had no time, and I'm like, Marcus will pull through for me.
Right.
He drew something that looked like an Etch-a-Sketch, and he used the actual numeric GPS coordinates. It was hideous. And I ended up printing out outlines of maps and drawing them myself and putting them on a wall. Right. But to your point, Tara, the disappointment that some of the output that AI has let us down is for real. And I do think maybe our listeners, maybe we should have a contest of the term that we can come up with when we get disappointed by the AI output.
I usually call it I. Because that's what I usually say when it outputs something I don't want,
Yeah, it's
just I. But, I think the point here, I always like to think in metaphor and simile and stuff, right? And so, if you go back to the Google days, right? And this is all about the tools that you have at your disposal, how you can learn something. I mean, I think that is also why we use AI, is to learn more or go deeper into something while kind of easy passing our way through, right? We're kind of skipping a bunch of research steps. But if I wanted to be a chef, I wanted to be a baker, and I've never baked a chocolate cake before, right? Back in the day, I'd say, hey, Google, what's a recipe for chocolate cake? And I would blindly follow a recipe, and it could be a pretty bad recipe. And then I'm like, oh, this is a bad cake. All right, I'm going to Google some more. I'm going to go find another recipe. And eventually you're going to know enough about the properties of chocolate cake that you're going to make your own recipe. Right. You're going to now become a chef, right? So I see AI in that very kind of same vein. I could just take it and make bad cake. Or I can use it to learn what makes a good cake to do my own thing, right?
Yes.
So it's, I think that's the idea. Do you want to be a baker in name only, where you're just doing the action of the recipe? Or do you actually want to own what you're making, right? And I think that's the thought process with how a parent can really frame it for a student.
Right. And if teachers are open to using it, it's only going to help the students refine the output from what they get from the AI and how they can take it as a foundation and use it instead of using it as their work. No, use it as a starting point or using it as a guide to help you.
Right. So how great is this conversation, parents? And for our parents, listen, the goal here is not to panic about AI. We're just having conversations about this so you're prepared. And it's to help your child become the kind of thinker who knows how to use the tools without letting the tools use the thinking for them. So this is certainly one part of our series on AI in the classroom, in the college process, in the college classroom. We want to thank you. We want to thank our special guest, Professor Tom.
Great to be here.
And Professor Dawn.
Happy to be here.
And to be continued with more conversation in another episode of From Carpool to College. This is Tracy Amadeo.
And Tara Horitz.
And we thank you for joining us.
At Academic Mentoring LLC, we know every student's journey is deeply personal. College and career decisions can feel really overwhelming, and families often don't know where to start. That's where we come in, led by the great Tracy Amadeo, a professional educator for nearly 3 decades. We help families outsource the stress while keeping the heart of the process intact. We take the time to understand each student's unique timeline, their goals, and the family's needs, guiding you toward confident, informed decisions. With our trusted expertise and care, you're not alone on this journey. AcademicMentoringLLC.com, because their journey matters.